For the fans. For the players. For all the news. Firebirds Weekly. This week's guest is Gabe Young.
Henry Nell Kicking. Professional training with the personal touch. While it is important to start young, attention to details and creating good habits is just as important. You will get the results you are looking for, using tried and true practices proven at the professional level. When you're ready to up your kicking game, enroll in Henry Nell Kicking Training. You will be glad that you did.
Welcome to the latest edition of Firebirds Weekly. We are live on location tonight at Colony High School. My name is Adam Samarov. I am one of the co-hosts for the show. My other co-host over on all the way to the left is Chris Zipperly. And with us tonight is Albany Firebirds strength and conditioning coach, Gabe Young. Coach Young, how are we doing tonight?
Everything's well. I'm well. It's good to see you guys. Appreciate you having me on.
No, definitely. We're excited to have you on. We apologize ahead of time for being a little bit behind. We ran into a few challenges, but new environment requires new experiences. So here we are. So again, thank you. And
you can see this big C behind me with the for the Colony. What do we know? I know we changed a little bit. We're the Wolfpack now. That's right. Former people, people that have been around a while know it as the Raiders, but we are the Wolfpack now. Just wanted to make sure, as you saw in the commercial, we're sponsored by Henry Nell Kicking and also Dude Wipes. And also, while we're doing our thank yous and sponsors, these great flock support shirts that Coach Young is wearing here from Steve Lounsbury, the father flocker, if I can spit that out, with these really cool new shirts. And I have to say, Coach, you look pretty tough. The kids would say you look pretty tough.
Thank you, Steve.
Yeah. He's not mid at all.
Not at all. If we start doing it, the kids will not do it anymore.
Exactly right.
All right. So Coach Young has been the strength and conditioning coach. This is now going to be his third season with the team, bringing a wealth of experience as both a professional player himself and as a dedicated coach specializing in speed, strength, and conditioning. Let's talk a little bit about your football experience. We have the guys on. We're always talking about where you come from and how football got into your life. And you are no different, Coach. You're from Eastern Mass. Tell me about getting into football when you were growing up.
All right, so I started playing football.
Get nice and close to that microphone. I don't want to miss a word.
I do talk low. All right, I started playing football about 7 years old, and with our local Pop Warner in Massachusetts, strong tradition of Pop Warner football out there, and then going into the high school. I went to Malden High. We do have the oldest Thanksgiving Day rivalry in the country.
Yes.
So that's a big deal.
I knew that town was familiar. I couldn't put my finger on it, but you're absolutely right.
Malden won this year, so big shout out to Malden High. Great job. It's something that I've loved my whole life. I did play multiple sports. Coming up in high school, all through youth, and then high school. My journey ended up in New York. Leaving high school, I had blew my knee out, ACL, 2 knee surgeries before high school, and that's how I ended up in New York at Hudson Valley, playing football. We had a great squad, great coaches, great coaching staff. Went there for physical education, and my next step was, going on. I eventually ended up signing a contract with the Albany Conquest, Arena 2 football. I also played with the Glens Falls Green Jackets earlier in my career, some semi-professional ball. Later on with the Albany Metro Maulers, several championships, national championships there. It was, that's a great time. Over those years, that's when I started to train athletes, train younger athletes, while training myself, and it's landed me here, so I started my coaching career with Shaker High School, and soon came over to Colony after about 5 years at Shaker. Came to Colony, and I've been here.
Just moved down the road a little bit.
Yeah.
How having to deal with 2 knee surgeries at a very young age. How was that for you? Were you ever deterred at all? Ever discouraged? And if so, what got you past that barrier?
Absolutely, it was a tough, very tough to deal with at the time. Just you feel like the world's ending. At that age, you don't know what's next, and
Right.
when schools want to stop speaking to you at that, this is why
Mm-hmm.
having great grades is something
Right.
that I push now.
Mm-hmm.
I did not have the grades coming out of high school, and I just took it for granted. Being a good athlete, you think, hey,
World's your oyster, as they say.
Right.
Right.
So, it's a big deal. I make sure that, my son, who's now a coach and, teacher at Lincoln Sudbury, shout out Shay. He suffered several injuries in high school, and, he was still able to, he had great grades.
Mm-hmm.
He was still able to earn a Division I scholarship at Bryant University and play football there. So, it was, from my mistakes, I was able to push that on and obviously help.
And that's good too, because you're here every day with kids here at Colony, and so you use your story to tell these kids,
Absolutely.
hey, yeah, you might be great on that football field, but if you are not getting it done in the classroom,
Doesn't matter.
forget it.
It's only one half. It's only one half of the responsibility. It's only one half of the puzzle.
Right.
There's players are everywhere. You have to be more than just one. You have to be both, because you can find one or the other anywhere. You gotta have everything.
Absolutely. I'm big on just these kids. There's more than just the sport. We do. I work with so many different athletes,
Mm-hmm.
but there's more than just the sport. The sport is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
And just getting some of these younger athletes to realize, hey, your education is that important. What you're going to do later on in life. You want to start thinking about these things now. Again, we don't need you to make decisions, life
Right.
life goals right now.
Mm-hmm.
But sports is just a segue, to get an education. So, I like to tell our athletes, hey, use these sports, to get where you want to go. Sports is something that builds character. There's a lot of team building.
Yeah.
And you see a lot of these, these CEOs hiring people, who come up in sport programs because they know they can work well together with someone. So
Sure.
if you're, especially these football players, you're a strong individual if you can get through a lot of this stuff. So, something I really preach is school and sports go together hand in hand.
It's kind of like they used to have it's different now because of all the NIL stuff. They used to have the thing, where everybody's going to go, people are going to go professional and things that other than sports.
Right.
And so you get, that's the kind of thing it is for these kids.
Right.
But speaking of that, and maybe a good segue here, let's talk about you as a young guy. So you go to Hudson Valley, and obviously, with some injuries as a kid, and then obviously grades, as we just talked about, for the kids now. Talk about that journey going from Hudson Valley and then, signing, with the Conquest. They had changed from the Firebirds back in the 90s with, Touchdown Eddie Brown and all the guys that, long-term time fans remember, and then they go away and they move to Indiana and then they come back as the Conquest. Talk about that journey going from Hudson Valley to signing a professional contract.
Well, Hudson Valley, like I said, we had a great football team then, and I had some great coaches that helped me along the way. And one of the things, jumping into the next level, just trying to figure out, at that point, we all think we're going to the NFL at
Right.
that time,
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of tough, oh man, this is not going to happen. But there was other, and nowadays it's even better. There was other segues to playing professional
Mm-hmm.
sports and staying active. As is to something I want to do. I want to play football as long as I could. So that transition, it was tough. It was tough back then, but I was lucky enough to be around it. I started with some great coaches like Ron Selesky and Pete Costanza and Coach Buffington, who was one of the original Firebird coaches.
Okay.
Coach
Yep.
Buffington came back towards the end of his coaching career. I also, after playing for him with the Conquest, I also followed him and went and played with the New England Surge. He was
Okay.
the inaugural coach for the New England Surge. And later on, that team turned into, I think, what would be called like the Mass Pirates. I think we played at the
Okay.
DCU Center.
Okay.
Up Willis Center.
Okay.
That's interesting. I did not know that. Okay.
Yep. I also played with the New Jersey Revolution.
Mhm.
They were at the time, I want to say it was IFL.
Mhm.
it's a little shady, but I'm trying to remember all the leagues and all the things have changed.
But I mean,
Well, yeah, right.
I mean, what was it like, going from that, and then, did you look at it like the professional athlete thing, or were you like, hey, well, it's in Albany, it's, obviously you said that you played for the Green Jackets and the Metro Maulers, and you did those things as well, and obviously that's that's more semi-professional,
Right.
And a lot of the guys that play that could potentially have that opportunity, and you were one that was able to parlay that into an opportunity to play for the Conquest.
Right. I mean, we had some phenomenal athletes with some, great ball players at the time with Albany Conquest, and we had some great crowds. We had great, Albany has such a great fan base. So, some of these guys, had opportunities to play, in the pros and in NFL and all that, and just getting invited into camps. I don't think people realize how hard that is.
Oh yeah.
I don't think people realize how hard it is to make it in an arena football team. It's. If you see some of the recruits that we have now, we have top tier athletes. Mm-hmm. So you're right. It's not easy. If you want to continue to play professionally after your college years, high school years, it's not easy finding a club that needs the talent, because there's so much talent out there. So, but it was a great transition for me. I was lucky enough to be around it. I've met some great teammates and buddies along the way that I still in contact with. I just had a blast. I had a blast with the hard work, the sweat, the blood that was put in.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I've had some great coaches, and that I still stay in contact with to this day. And one of them, Coach Bowick, he was one of he coached me also with the Conquest. So it's great that we have we still have a great relationship. He was always been a fair guy to me. Always treated me, like a little bro. So he's someone that, I'll always respect. But that transition, from, the semi-professional to professional, it was tough, because I've been on the end of, I've been on teams where, you're getting cut. It's a business.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're not up to, to snuff for that particular team, it's time to go home. And then you got to figure out, okay, do I want to do this again? Okay, I got to get back in the lab, start working out, and
sure.
figuring out how to get myself back on the field or back on the team. So that's what's great about this game, because you can get knocked down, and if you got the goal, you stand back up and say, all right, I'm going to try it again.
So I got a question for you in terms of how you train Albany Firebirds here. Obviously, just sitting in here and watching lacrosse practice just over there, I know you have expertise and experience with sports beyond football. But let's compare it to the high school, let's say outdoor team. How would you train them versus how you would train someone that's playing, in a much smaller space? Is there any difference?
And being high school kids, 15, 16, 17 versus, grown men,
Well, first, training, high school athletes, you can push them a little harder. For one, right now at this point in their life, these guys are more impressionable. They want to learn. They want the guidance, and you can push them a little harder. And it's because they don't know what the unknown is. They haven't been there yet, so they're going to hang on to a lot of your words and how we shape them as athletes. It's important. So we got to be very careful and delicate, with these athletes, and make sure that that we're doing the right thing with them and by them. But I love being able to see growth between these athletes. You see a kid, you start with them from 8 years old, and then you see them, when they're graduating, going to college, and then after college. So to me, there's so much that you get from that, just to see the growth as human beings, not just athletes.
That's huge. I mean,
I agree.
Especially with you having a son. I experienced something very similar with my kids. This is like a huge, just for my example, my daughter plays 10U softball. She just turned 12, so she's going to go to 12. But if you look at 12 versus 10U,
oh yeah,
it's like almost literally a different league.
Right.
And then especially, football is no different. All sports like that, but that's the thing that's the joy of it is seeing the growth.
Right.
Now, to flip it on its head, you see the growth. I think probably quicker with the youth. It probably takes a little bit more investment in time on your end,
right?
In terms of a older professional athlete. How is it to be able to push someone that
that knows the game,
right?
So for maybe lack of a better phrase,
right.
these guys have done it their whole lives.
And that's a tough part. And that's, when I first started working with, these professional athletes, I had to check myself. I had to come in and, approach it a little differently. I made sure that I stuck by guys like Coach Ware, and I watched how he approached, coaching these guys, and he has his own approach. And I didn't exactly want to do exactly how he, I have my own approach too, but I want to see, take tips and see exactly how he, he approaches a guy and how he talks to him, and he's calm until he's not, and when he means business, Coach Ware's, great. He's been a great mentor. So, that's one of the things, I sit back, and I watch how some of these other coaches worked with some of these, these are grown men, that we're working with, and these guys have been there and they've been around some good things. So the approach is different. But you also, I'm there for a reason. I got a job to do, so sometimes my job is going to be tough on them, and they either have to get with the program or not.
That's
so
the truth.
If Coach Ware says, "Hey, this is how we want things done," this is how it's getting done, whether the guys like it or not. So sometimes the approach has to be a little more stern. But with the older guys, I can also talk to some of them and say, "Hey, listen, man, we gotta approach this differently. We don't like how you're going at this, but I can push them to an extent. But some of them, they're like, hey, I'm going to do it my way, and it's like, well, no, we do things our way here. There's a standard.
Well, that's just it. I mean, I think winning helps sell that message.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, at this point, listen, in the 2 years that the Firebirds have been here, they've lost 2 games.
Right.
I don't even remember what 24 was. I know obviously the championship was what it was, but I think we unintentionally skipped over the first step. How did you become an Albany Firebird coach? How did that materialize?
Yeah, because you've been here, for a decade plus, here at Colony, and doing your thing, and then where did that opportunity come up for you?
Opportunity came up. So I had I first approached Coach Ware. It was about 2 years ago, well, about 3 years ago, yes. And I would just say, what, my son was graduating from college. So I felt like, hey, now's my time, if ever. It was something that, while he was going through, his recruitment process and going to college, it's something I wasn't really ready to commit to yet. And when he was basically graduating, it was like, all right, now's my time. If
this next chapter.
Right.
He's gonna be in Rhode Island doing his thing.
Right. So, and it just kind of like said, hey, you know what, I'm gonna go for it.
Timing's everything.
Yep. Reached out to Coach Ware. We spoke. We sat down. We had a bunch of good conversations. And next thing it was like, hey, are you sure you want to do this? Are you ready to commit to this?
Well, that's the key point right there. Everybody can say yes, but it's a whole other thing to be committed.
Correct. And if anybody knows, Coach, our days start early. So they could start at 5:30, 6 a.m. and they could go till 10 p.m. So and that was one of the things.
So you better be committed, or you'll be committed, if you know what I'm saying.
Correct. Right. So again, the standard is the standard. So that was one of the things he wanted to know. Hey, are you ready for this? And then when he brought me in, it was like, okay, stick close. And it's, he wants to make sure. He's great with all the younger coaches. He wants to make sure that you really want to be here, and he's going to make sure that you're learning the way he wants things done. And for the most part, we have a great staff. And everybody kind of like falls into line. They kind of like dominoes fall into place. So that's basically where it started. We started off with just conversations and then took it from there.
So I don't want to give away anything. So, but when you do so you're in camp.
Yes.
And from what I think I know is there's a process in terms of we'll say a grading system.
Correct.
In terms of evaluations, in order for guys to help guide a decision. Where do you fit in that? Not necessarily like you don't need to get into the dirty details, but like if a guy isn't something as simple as not stretching or being I don't want to say disobedient, but difficult to deal with. Like where does that fall within the checklist of things?
So I am the special teams coordinator as well.
Yep.
So the way we go at it, we have we have long meetings. We get in there, and everybody has a voice, and that's one of the things again about Coach Ware is, he allows us to have a voice. Now, we don't have to agree on everything. Everything he might not take into consideration, but we have a voice, and that's the great thing about it. So we've had some good conversations where it's like, hey, I might see something in an athlete that, Coach Cisse or someone might not see. And,
that's why it's a team approach.
Correct.
You see everything that way.
It.
Yeah.
And, and we get our points in. We don't, like I said, we don't always agree, but we make sure we speak over it. We speak on it again. It's not just one conversation. And we have our grading system, so that all comes into play. And if a guy doesn't, if he doesn't come out to snuff for what the standard is in Albany, then, it's, he's going to get a ticket back home.
And boy, I'll tell you, like, doing stuff with the wide receivers, having the offensive player of the year and, I mean, geez, everybody, you guys put out there was getting it done. Right. That's got to be a really big thing for you to be like, these are the guys I work with, look at the output.
Right. It's one of the things, we run a tough camp, so that's one of the things, when you come into camp, you're going to work. And, we've had guys come in, we didn't work this hard somewhere. We don't care.
Well, you're not there. You're
right,
here.
Exactly right.
Don't
you're
matter.
Here now. So
that's right.
We run a tough camp. So some of these guys, they'll cut themselves. If they're, we're big on body language.
Yeah.
We're big on just hard work. Coach Cisse, he never stops. So if he's saying move and he's yelling the whole time, don't stop moving, because that might be the last time you're here. You might get your pink slip the next day. So this, again, you're going to hear this nonstop. The standard is a standard, and we hold these guys accountable, and we want them to come in the best shape of their life, because we're going to push you. And, the proof's in the pudding. We're going to push you, and we're going to make sure that you, the days are long for not only the coaches, the players as well. We're going to make sure you know your playbook. We're going to make sure that you're going over a ton of film. And you should know the game like it's the back of your hand. So it is, with professional athletes, you should be able to push them, and they should be willing to want to be on a winning team.
Oh, for sure.
And winning ball club.
And you win the game Monday through Friday, not when you get off the bus.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so there's a question here that I want to touch on since we're talking special teams here. This is from Steve. How proud of special teams
I'm gonna blame Steve for asking the question weird. No, I think where we're going is, how proud are you of how you guys came together as a unit? Because there were a couple of games last year that maybe Albany doesn't win, yes, or it's a heck of a lot closer without that quality special teams. Markel Wade on the returns, my God. Henry with the kicking the bar balls. He had, the two touchdowns back to back against Corpus. All that, is a big. Obviously, that third that third part of those three.
Well, special teams. It goes back to Coach Ware wants things done a certain way, and it was a portion of the season that our special teams weren't as strong.
Yeah.
And Coach Ware, he's up front, and he holds us as coaches accountable, and he spoke on that. And one of the things you don't want to do is you don't want to let him down.
That's right.
You don't want to disappoint him. Yep. And we had our conversations, and he's like, I need us to get better. And it was things that I had to get in my bag at that point. I had to make sure, we had to get stronger in practice at special teams. We had to kick it up a notch. So where some of these guys, they want the easy-going special teams in practice, and it's like, no.
That's not the answer when you're struggling.
Exactly. We had to turn it up a notch.
That's right.
So, when that happened, that's when things really turned around for the team, because now we were three phases.
Yes,
it was offense, defense, special teams, and that's when we knew, we were coming. The guys started caring a little bit more about special teams, because let's face it, at multiple levels, some of the guys are like, I just want to play offense or defense. They don't want to fly down with special teams, but it takes a certain individual to want to fly down there full speed and run into things full speed.
So I will say a name that will get a smile on the face of my Buffalo Bill fan friend over here, co-host, Steve Tasker.
Oh, Steve
that
Tasker.
dude, listen, soapbox time.
Speaking of guys that are willing to make it happen.
Famer, stop messing with my guy, Steve Tasker. He belongs to be in the Hall of Fame, period. Period. Like, he is the guy. He is the watermark for special teams.
Oh, he was definitely. I'm a Patriot fan.
Yeah, I mean, you lived it.
But he was definitely
Slater too, man. He deserves.
Yep.
Another guy. Again, special teams. It's so important. And when you have guys like Henry Nell who can, get a phenomenal kicker. One of the things, I'm going to say about Henry, that we spoke every single day about something to do with special teams. We would get to arenas and, we would do our walkthrough. He'd do his walkthrough. He'd be checking out the height of the ceilings and this and that. I mean, he was phenomenal. He would have a breakdown literally of what he saw on special teams. He would literally send me a breakdown and we'd go over exactly what we saw, where the speed was at, where the what we call the fish, where the fish is at, we could go at this person. Henry was huge to the special teams and helping shape how our approach was as far as the the kickoffs and field goals and certain things, the drop kicks and onside kicks, so he had a bag when it came to onside kicks. He had like 16 onside kicks that he could do.
Yeah.
Having that, definitely helped. And then having guys who were willing to say, hey, coach, you need me? I'm there. I'm in. So that was awesome, to have that. And that makes my job a lot easier. And like I said, when we weren't playing as great on special teams, that's when, as a unit, as a coaching staff, we stepped up. Coach said, hey, we need to get better here. And, I had great help from, Coach Lou, with analytics, Coach Cisse, all the coaches like really stepped up, and it actually helped build us to become a more full team.
The second half of that question that was asked was, are you pro Rouge? If you had a vote.
I like the Rouge. I don't mind the Rouge. I think it adds a different element to the game. Yeah. I like it. I think, it's something that, we should still be part of the game.
I agree.
I don't have an issue with it.
But I love the deuce.
Yes.
I love the fact that you can start the game kicking the ball to the other team, but get 2 points.
Yes. Yep. And that was something that, we get the crowd going, getting that deuce chant going. That was big, and that was something that pumped the whole stadium up,
including guys, on the field and behind the bench.
Right.
Like, that's like, I'm pretty sure anyway, in a championship game, it started off with a deuce.
Right.
Like, that is just like, if you haven't even touched the ball yet, you're already down.
You're up. Yeah, you're up 2-0. Boom.
That's critical. And like, like any good team, it's the hidden points, it's the hidden yardage. That's what wins and loses football games. Not always the big plays, and sometimes not even the small plays. It's about the whole body of work, and every little thing matters.
So what is because you have so many roles, you're not just strength and conditioning, you're not just the wide receiver coach, you're not just the special teams coordinator. What is your day-to-day during the season look like? We know what Coach Ware does in terms of, it's a full-time job and maybe even more than a full-time job. What does your day-to-day look like?
So
in season,
we get there. First off, breaking down film for our positional groups is extremely important, and breaking down for other positional groups, because there might be something that we see, even if I'm not working with that particular grouping of athletes, that we talk about in our meetings. So just breaking down film, that's something that's instrumental, big time. But getting to the arena or wherever we're practicing at, and going over what the game plan is for today, this practice plan. Getting the guys, speaking to the guys when you get there, seeing where their heads are at, because that's a big thing too. These guys are away from home, they're away from their families, so just creating, we want to create some connections with the guys, see where they're coming from. So when things go bad, hey, it's a conversation. But that's early on, before we start to get things going in practice, then getting the guys warmed up, putting them through some dynamic stuff. Making sure that their bodies are ready to go, sometimes it's, sometimes we're getting ready for speed work. Sometimes we're just, trying to keep them healthy. What does happen is there are a lot of injuries in this game.
Yeah, I don't mean to slow you down.
And it's a long season. I
Right,
mean,
super
it's
long
a very long season.
And the other part of it is we had Michael on last week, and we I guess we didn't realize how much you guys work together. How do you guys fit? Like, that you want to do this. I understand it's a team approach, but how does what you do in a athletic trainer? How do you guys work together to make sure that you are cohesive, so you don't push a guy that doesn't need to be pushed in a certain area, et cetera?
So one of the things, I want them to be the athletes, especially Mike. Mike's awesome. So one of the things, when the guys speak to Mike, usually will let me know if someone comes to them. Hey, listen, this one's got a soft tissue injury or this and that. This is the approach I think we should take, and I take it from there. Whether it's slowing them down from whatever our strength work is for that day. ABC. Shout out to ABC. So we get a lot of strength work over there, but there's a lot of stuff on field that we work on too, that we can save these athletes from not, pulling hamstrings and staying away from some of these, burying them too much so they're not getting these soft tissue injuries. So Mike's awesome with the communication with that. And the players were real good as well with speaking. And that was one thing I asked, instead of just saying, I'm not going to do something, we would tell them, come speak to us. Let us know, where you're banged up. There's something that we can, modify to make things a little easier. Right, correct.
Yeah.
So we, we had great communication, with the guys, and, some of if they didn't come in and communicate, that's kind of on their body. And then they're, next thing you know, they're out, and you're not getting that game check. If one of the things that Coach Selesky told me, back in the days, and it's one of my favorite lines, and, he said, you can't make the club in the tub. So if you're injured all the time and you're not taking care of your body, you're not getting your body right, you're not speaking to the trainer, guess what? You're going to be the guy who's we're going to bring someone else in. We have to, right? These rosters are small. So their communication with us, the players' communication with us, is instrumental. It's something that has to happen. And then, the communication between Mike and myself has been good, and he was great when it came to, hey, just keeping me up to date with, this is what I did with them. Moving forward, we want to make sure that we're taking this approach. So, that teamwork together helped out.
And so, we talk about obviously the in-season stuff, but right now, December here, we're halfway through the off season. Camps will probably open up sometime in March. Things are happening. Coach Ware is doing what he's doing in terms of getting guys coming in. I think we just signed a new guy today, I believe. I think I saw that on the Firebirds socials. And what do you do during the off season in terms of these guys go to the 4 wins, all over the country? What do you do in the off season to kind of work with the guys that are coming back that we've already established that are going to be here in Albany again for 2026?
So, one of the things that we want to do, and we've had some contact and with the guys, and some of the guys have reached out to me, which I got to get them. Sorry, guys, Rob, DB, Zacher. So, they've spoke to me about, hey, listen,
my guy Zacher,
Coach, can you put together a workout plan for me? So, yes, I do know I got to get that made for you guys. So
it's on video now.
I apologize.
Right.
It's on video now.
Yeah, so here comes the real.
But these guys, these guys will reach out and they'll say, hey, listen, they want to be in shape. They want to get ready, So, which is appreciated for me that they, that they're willing to work and they want to come here in tip-top shape.
Well, the other interesting thing is these guys have been other places. They're asking you.
Right.
So that means a lot.
It does. It's a big deal.
So I have a quick question, just as a former lineman myself. Obviously we don't have to get into the nitty-gritty of it because I don't think that would take an hour. What's kind of the basic plan that you would give for someone like Josh Zacher, offensive lineman? What would kind of be, a basic idea for him? Hey, we're still a few months away from the season. What would you do to get kind of ready, even at this early stage?
Well, one of the things we want to do is we want to make sure that we stay, we keep our base strong. So, we want to be as strong as possible, and we want to make sure that because it is such a long season that we're not burning them out too early. There's no sense of dumping everything on them, So, the plan that I would work with them would be, basic strength training. We work in a periodic schedule, so we would have a portion of the year that we would go and we'd be getting after it. But then we'd have a portion of the year where we would maintain strength. We don't want, to. We're not looking for someone like Zachary to be a power lifter and to be at his strongest point right now. That does us no good. So we have to make sure that we're protecting our athletes in the off season. Now, one thing we want to do is we don't want them sitting on their butts all year, but
that's for sure.
We want to make sure that they're doing something and staying strong, and and staying conditioned, because this is a sport where you're up and down that field. You have to play special teams. Everybody has to play special teams except two guys. So you got to be able to run down the field for 50 yards. You have to be able to do these things. So, linemen, we still have to make sure that they're conditioned and strong. So, and their condition is not the same as what we would do with, DB or something. We're not gonna, we're not, they're going to have maybe slightly longer sprints. These linemen, we need, 10-yard sprints. If we're getting
I do my running 10 yards at a time.
Exactly. So we don't necessarily need to be running miles with those guys. But we want to make sure that they stay strong and they stay healthy and their joints stay healthy, because, again, it's a lot on their body. Also, we want to make sure that they're eating well. These are the things that are going to help your body recover a lot quicker.
Yeah, you could say, you look at the NFL stuff, and it's like those are they're these players make millions of dollars, and these trainers are sure making tons of money or whatever, and they have their own thing, and it's the same thing down. It's the same thing down here. It's just on a different level.
Right. It's it's important throughout the season that you're feeding your body. A lot of these guys they're not at home. So they don't get their home cooking that they used to. So, finding, being able to eat well, we have some great, vendors that actually take care of us. And, we got some great food that these guys get. We're one of the teams that do we make sure our guys are fed well. So, not every team has the means to do that. Like I said, we have a great community. We get great flock support. So these guys get things, these people are thinking about other people. So when they're setting up these bags for these guys,
we were going to ask you about the bags too, because
my God, it's amazing to see what they get.
It's we talk. I mean, to a man, it's like guy lives in Texas or whatever, and is up here in New York, and right. It's like, just having those little pieces Absolutely. Of home is like a big deal.
It's a big deal, absolutely.
So I got two questions to kind of wrap it up. Favorite moment being with the Firebirds to date?
You're not allowed to say the championship, though. Then, that's obvious.
And then the second question is, what do you look forward most to coming up for 26?
One of the best moments, running out of the tunnel, at the beginning of the game, and there's so many, especially in front of our home crowd, and I see a ton of my, colony athletes and just athletes from other schools that I work with in the stands. And, that's a phenomenal feeling, running through the flames, running through the fires there, to the introduction. That's a great feeling, that's, real close to the feeling of actually running out the tunnel and getting ready to play. So that energy before a game, and, we're so hyped up at that point, but we're trying to stay in control. There's not too many feelings that match that. So that is a great feeling. And the second question, I can
always that coming out of the tunnel is obviously really cool with all the fireworks going and all that. But all I can see is Coach Cisse. I can't even do it right. I will never do it right. But he's something else.
He's got a great pitches on that too.
Then the secondary question was, what are you most looking forward to coming into 26?
26. So my biggest thing is I hope that we for one. Coach Ware's got a great recruitment class coming in of new guys that are coming in. So seeing these guys jump aboard early and just literally saying, hey, you know what? However you guys have been doing it, we want to jump aboard. We want to do it exactly the way you guys do it because, again, the standard is the standard. So, just having that full, cooperation from the athletes and really kind of rolling into things like, hey, is this how we're doing things? All right, we're in. That is exciting for me because we know if that happens the way it's set up to happen, we're looking to win another championship.
Oh, for sure.
So,
And I mean, my experience has been in terms of in the times that I've coached. One of my first thing that I enjoy the most is the recruiting piece. Right. My second favorite piece is figuring out what you're going to become.
Correct.
And seeing seeing what you have and what they can do, and hopefully it is what you thought it was. But what's your opinion? Do you really feel like you don't know your team until like 5 weeks in? Maybe. Do you think that's fair?
You know what?
Or is it less for this group?
It's less because camp is tough for us.
Yeah.
Camp's a war. It's a battle. Mm-hmm. So we kind of know what we have coming out of camp, and coach pushes the whole staff hard. It's not just the players. He pushes us hard. He wants to know what he has coming out of camp. So it doesn't
Across
take us
the board.
right. It doesn't take us. He wants to know. Listen,
what are you made out of?
Yeah, what are we made out of right now? Mm-hmm. And if we're not getting the job done, then the big bad wolf has to come out. And and nobody wants that. So we make sure that our job is getting done. Because if the players aren't getting it done, that goes back on us as coaches. So we got to get back to the drawing board. Okay, what do we have to do better to motivate these guys and get these guys to play again? It's a team thing. It's a team effort. So we know we're well aware that it's not just the players that we got to grind too, and we got to make sure that we're doing everything that we do to prepare these guys for the storm. And we know early. We find out real early who we have and what these guys are made of. And the guys who just they're not up to snuff, they don't last.
I was going to say,
professional sports.
You usually spot them almost the day they walk in. Because like you said, body language is big. I struggle. My daughter isn't watching, but that's one thing that we're working on with her is like body language is everything. Because you can be frustrated all you want, but it's a team game, and you gotta act a certain way and meet expectations. That sort of thing. So
correct.
I don't see you talk about that Damon could become the big bad. Well, I don't want to see him blowing down the houses. No, I do not. That is something I do not want to see.
No, and luckily for us, we, our players have been resilient and figured it out before that has to happen.
Right.
But there's been a few times where it's like when it happens, everyone's just like, okay, let's get it together.
I think that's important. I mean, listen, we've all played for coaches that yell and scream during good and bad.
Yeah.
But I'm always of the thought is there better be a reason.
Correct.
And I think if you're yelling all the time, I think that boils down to lack of players respecting you personally. That's just me.
Right.
You get tuned out.
Yeah.
If you're just a yeller, you just get tuned out. But no, we appreciate giving us 45 minutes of your time, and we look forward to talking to you during the season. Want to mention Powerhouse Athletics, of course. We want to mention that as well. We kind of left over that a little bit, but it's on your truck, so you can't miss it.
Yep.
And I'd like to give a shout out to my brother who does a massage therapy for us. Massage and movement. He's worked with the guys.
You tell him to sponsor us, will you? No.
We'll speak. I'll talk to him. Yep.
But again, obviously making some jokes, but to have that local connection where it's like all these guys coming together for this one goal. To be able to have this championship organization,
right,
is a big deal.
And
it's definitely a big deal.
Yeah, like there isn't. I don't, from the outside looking in, there's genuine care for the athletes here.
Yes.
And one thing that I think, I'm assuming that you agree with. These guys. I mean, I don't know the ages of these guys, but I'm going to guess most nobody is any older than the late 20s. And I think it's important as a coach to kind of help them through life too.
Absolutely.
Because you you've lived some life, and
Right.
to me, like that is one of the things that I like probably the most, and I'm a little bit older now, is that like I can say, hey, yeah, I've experienced that.
Right.
I'm not going to tell you what to do, but this is what I experienced, sort of thing.
Right.
So I would imagine that that's a big part of one of the many reasons that you like being around the team, I'm sure.
Absolutely. The guys, because they're just guys.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I know a lot of them have been in, big places. They've played in front of, 80,000 people, so, and when it comes down to just having a conversation with them, sometimes you realize, wow, they're just guys, like talking to, one of the boys, so it's definitely, it means a lot to, get a little bit of connection, but we make sure that, as coaches, that we still are getting our job done, and we don't want to, you don't want to ruin a work relationship with, getting too close, but you do want to know a little bit about what makes this person tick, what can we do to motivate this person a little bit more. So, getting a connection, just having quick conversations.
That's important too, because at the end of the day, I mean, you can learn something from them too.
Absolutely.
So yeah, like I said, we went, 45 minutes. Thank you for giving us the time. We really appreciate it. We're looking forward to, the 2026 season. News to note, AF1 posted earlier today that the 2026 schedule will be coming out. No idea where it is yet, but if I was a betting man, I would say it's probably Albany v Nashville rematch from the Arena Crown for last year. But we'll see. We'll see when that comes out. That's supposed to be 10 o'clock tomorrow morning. Big announcement through AF1. So anybody that's interested in that, check them out. And we'll talk about that when we come back. I think we're going to be off for a couple of weeks for the holidays.
Yep.
And we're looking forward to coming back after the first of the year. We have some other irons in the fire. So be on the lookout. Go on, take a look at all our socials for the Nest on Facebook, Instagram, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And we will see you after the first of the year. So for everybody out there, have a good, happy holiday and a happy new year. And we will see you in 2026. Coach Young, we appreciate it.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.